Twilight Syndrome. I've previously taken you through the first two games in the series, the Twilight Syndrome duology. At the end of the second game, we learn that the trio's series of adventures have been partially orchestrated by some kind of entity, why they were brought here, and why Mika, the airhead of the trio, is the only one that remembers their old world and their past lives. Well, I suppose we'll have to dive in to find out. So sit back and relax and let me, for probably the first time in English, take you on a journey through Moonlight Syndrome. We see a boy standing on the edge of a roof, illuminated by the moonlight. Then a gang of people, a gathering of eyes, and then we see the boy step over the edge and a scream is heard, followed by the sound of an object falling through the air, and then a thud. Mika runs up to Yukari outside school and tells her that something really big has happened, and that she needs her to come with her. Yukari doesn't want to go and asks what happened, and Mika tells her about what we, the audience, just saw in the previous scene, because apparently it happened at her apartment building, and apparently it's the third time within a very short time frame, and apparently the kids that did it all went to the same school. While Mika is trying to convince Yukari to go, Chisato and Arisa show up, and apparently Arisa and Yukari have never met, so they're introduced, and then Yukari gets angry over something and storms off. And Mika and Chisato give each other that look, letting each other know that it must be one of her Yukari days. Since Chisato has taken to call in Mika Yukari 2 anyways, and with Arisa being Mika's own Mika, the trio is kind of back together, and the three of them agree to go investigate the suicide later. For once, it's Mika that shows up first, and she stands around for a little while before trying to call Chisato first. She doesn't reach Chisato, but she manages to get a hold of Arisa's mom, and she says that Arisa just left. It's a 30-minute trip from her house to here, so Mika decides to start the investigation without the others, and goes to check out the spot where the boy jumped. While she's inspecting the chalk outline of where he landed, she hears a footstep approach, and three voices then start talking to her, and they aren't saying nice things. They begin arguing over who should get to beat her up, but they end up agreeing that it's too early and too public to do such a thing, and tell her to stay out of their way, or else. Mika naturally agrees, and the gang backs off. Before they disappear, Mika asks one of them what it is that they are doing, and the girl says that it's their generation's time to step up and do things right, and that people like her and her friends are gonna be the ones that do it, and all while being guided by the hand of Riru. Mika is baffled, and the girl tells her that she's weak, and then she walks away. Sometime later, Arisa shows up, and when she sees no Mika at the building, she curses her for making her miss an episode of her favorite TV show, and wishes that Mika was here so that she could use her phone to call her mom and get her to record it for her. Like Mika earlier, she decides not to wait around and starts to investigate on her own. Standing in the shade of a tree, she finds a child that's crying. The child is both sad because their friend is dead, but they also keep saying that they know that they are next in line, and when Arisa asks for what, the child replies, to die. Arisa tries to reason with the child, telling her that she doesn't have to do it, and then the child says that it's not her choice, someone will come and get them. But Arisa tells her to just lock the door and not answer, and the child thanks her for her advice and then heads home to barricade themselves, so that Riru won't get them. After the weird encounter with the sad child, Arisa sees Mika in the distance and runs up to her. Mika is pissed that she is late and asks if she fell asleep in the bath or something, apparently forgetting that she is always the one that's usually late, forcing everyone else to wait for her, and that Arisa had to wait for her for 2 hours just the other day. Arisa doesn't make the point I'm making though, and she just asks Mika what she found out, and Mika updates her on the chalk outline and the weird gang of middle schoolers that threaten to beat her up. Arisa then tells Mika about her encounter with the child that is going to kill themselves, that girl named Nana. and fills Mika in on the details and of course mentions Riru, whom Mika remembers the other kids mentioning, and in a way made it seem like they were almost afraid to say her name out loud. Then something weird happens. The duo agree to go over to where Nana lives, and then we see someone wearing Arissa's outfit and pretending to be like her, showing up at the apartment before the actual Arissa and Mika can make their way there, and then that weird doppelganger enters, and then we hear Nana scream. And then Arissa, the real Arissa, shows up with Mika at the apartment building and starts looking for where Nana lives. What the fuck is going on? The duo take the elevator up and find the right apartment number, but when they try and knock and ring the bell, no one answers. They decide to go back outside and ask around where Riru could be, and then they run into one of the kids that wanted to beat Mika up, and then ask them if they've seen Riru, and if they think that Riru could have taken Nana. The kid is torn. They want to help Nana, but they also don't want to anger Riru. Arissa gets angry over the situation and Mika has to tell her to calm down. The kid, being scared of Arissa's outbursts, says that they think Riru lives in A block because people have seen her walk out of there, and right when Arissa hears this, she starts running in the direction of that apartment building. Mika hastily thanks the kid for doing the right thing and then comments to herself that she really is turning into Yukari, and then runs after Arissa. Mika takes a moment outside A block to look at what apartments have lights on inside, and then she starts going from apartment to apartment to look for both Arissa and Nana. A little while later, Chisato and surprisingly Yukari show up outside, and Chisato curses Yukari for making them late. Yukari doesn't understand why they're always chasing after Mika, that dumb airhead, but Chisato says that Yukari loves Mika, and if Chisato didn't quote-unquote force her to come, she would be chasing after her anyways. While they're bickering, Yayoi shows up and she greets Chisato as her sister, which leaves Yukari almost speechless. So apparently she didn't know about her sister either, despite having known Chisato since kindergarten. What's up with that? Chisato and Yayoi get in a heated standoff. Yayoi tries to monologue, but Chisato keeps repeatedly asking her why she's here and what she's gonna do, over and over and over again. Yayoi doesn't spill the beans, she just attacks Chisato's character and calls her a hypocrite. For what? I don't know. Not yet. Yukari asks her what the hell they're talking about, and Chisato apologizes for acting like that in front of Yukari. Yayoi says something snarky to Yukari, but Yukari just dismisses her as a child and then asks Chisato if that is really her sister. And then it gets weird. Yayoi and Chisato both go into Super Saiyan mode and engage in an energy battle, and Yukari gets in the middle of them and gets teleported to the roof. Where the suicide from the beginning of the chapter happened. While she's wondering where she is, Chisato yells at Yayoi, asking what she did to Yukari, and Yayoi cryptically says that she gave her a chance, and that it's up to Yukari now, whatever that means. Meanwhile, inside the apartment building, Mika runs into Aramata and records her progress, and then she continues her search for Riru, Nana, and Arissa. On the second floor, she asks if a resident knows where Riru is, and the resident slams the door in her face. On the third floor, she asks another resident, and while she is afraid and wants nothing to do with this suicide business, she does know that Riru lives in the building because she met her in the elevator once on her way down, which means that she lives on the floor above this one. Mika runs up the stairs and she remembers that there was no light on the 4th, 5th and 6th floor, but that apartment 701 had a light on. She runs up there and knocks and asks about Riru, and also pleads for the person not to slam the door in her face, as it's very important that she finds Riru. The person says that they don't know what apartment exactly or what floor, but that a lot of people visit it because it has the best view of the city, because it's a corner apartment, and that it has more windows than a regular apartment. On the 8th floor, both apartment 801 and 809 had lights on. So Mika runs up and knocks on the door of 801. A person opens, but they say they don't accept door-to-door salesmen. So Mika runs down the hall and knocks on 809 and asks if anyone is there. A strange light emits from the gap in the door and Mika screams, and then she's back at the staircase on the 8th floor. She realizes that she got the apartment number wrong and didn't actually knock on the door of 809. She walks up to the real 809 and tries to ring a bell, but no one answers. So she rings the next door and says that she has a message for Riru from next door. The person initially feigns ignorance and asks why she's asking about Riru, but Mika says it's very important and delivers the message. And then she hides and watches the person exit their apartment and head towards where Riru lives. Mika tails them and finds out that Riru lives upstairs. Mika knocks on the door where she thinks Riru lives and asks if the person knows where she is. The person says that the person that Mika is looking for lives on the innermost part of the building, which Mika doesn't quite understand, and then the person clarifies that they mean the 10th floor. As Mika ascends, she starts to feel a bit nervous. She knows this kid is just some edgelord, but the fact that every resident in this building is scared of her freaks her out a little. She makes her way to the apartment where Riru lives and she knocks. Someone answers and says that all of the children are liars and that Mika mustn't be fooled. Mika asks who the person is, but she doesn't answer and she just closes the door. Mika is baffled and is trying to make sense of it all. They're all liars and Riru is in the opposite room of where everyone says she is. So, apartment 1010. The opposite of that would be what? 0101, so apartment 101, so the bottom floor. Mika has no other leads, so she makes her way down the stairs down to the very bottom floor. She makes it to the apartment and then hesitates for a moment, but then she decides to ring the bell. Riru answers and tells her to come inside and that nothing will happen. Meanwhile, Arisa is somewhere else, and she is sensing that something is happening and that Mika and Nana are in danger. And up on the roof, Nana is standing on the edge, and Yukari is there as well, trying to talk her down from it. Yukari says that if they all gave up every time things got hard, the human race would have gone extinct a long time ago. And that she's sure that whatever Nana thinks she did wrong, it's not that big of a deal. Nana says that she doesn't believe her. She's probably a liar like the other girl. Yukari asks what other girl, and Nana says that Arisa told her to hide in her apartment and then nothing bad would happen, but that was a lie because Arisa showed up at her apartment later, but when she opened the door, only Riru was there. Yukari tries to ask her who Riru is, and Nana interrupts and says that she's gonna end it. Yukari asks how long she thinks her family and friends will grieve her death before they can be happy again. Nana says that she doesn't have any family or friends that care about her. Yukari says that she'll probably does, and even if she doesn't, if she just opens her heart, someone will come along who will start appreciating her and cherishing her friendship. Nana asks how you can tell the bad people apart from the good people and know who you should open up to. Yukari says that that's a valid question and that only experience will teach that. We all have to get back up when we get hurt and try again. Nana thanks her and steps off the ledge, but then she's assaulted by some kind of vision and steps back onto the ledge. Yukari asks what's happening, and Nana starts incoherently babbling to herself before angrily shouting at Riru up in the sky. She then thanks Yukari and then dives. Downstairs, Riru assures Mika that she won't try and flee and says that she will tell her everything. She says that she's nothing more than a symbol and that she's not the one telling them to dive. She says that there's a pulse compelling the kids to do this, and Mika asks her to explain exactly what that means. Riru says that all the families here, all the parents, they work all day and the little kids are left to themselves. Left to create their own little world, and that they live in a separate reality from everyone else. She says that the building feels lifeless and asks Mika how many people she saw when she walked around and if she saw a single person her own age. Riru says that older kids and adults, they live their own lives in their own circles and they don't come home until late, and that kids like Nana are afraid of them and all the others that aren't really here, the ones who exist almost as ghosts. Mika says that that sounds very lonely, and Riru says that her generation won't become like theirs. They will oppose the status quo, and they will die. Mika asks why they need to kill themselves to oppose the status quo, and Riru says, well, it's the pulse, it calls them. Mika asks if she can stop the suicide, and Riru replies that she can tell people what happens here. And then maybe change can happen, and warmth can be brought back to places like these. Maybe then, the kids will feel that they are welcome in their own homes. Mika asks why she can't stop this if she's the symbol that unites them. Riru says it's not that simple, but that there is something she can do, something that only she can do. And Mika tells her to do it, do whatever it takes to stop this. Riru accepts what Mika is saying and tells Mika to stay for tea. Mika drinks the tea and then darkness. Meanwhile, on the roof, Yukari doesn't quite understand, but she makes her way downstairs and then she runs into Nana. How? Someone apparently saved her, and they did it because Mika told them to. Outside the building, Chisato runs into Arisa, and she tells her she's sorry for being late, but that she had to go get Yukari. Arisa then fills Chisato in on everything that happened from her point of view, and then the two split up. Arisa heading to C block to look for Yukari and Nana, and Chisato going to A block to look for Mika and Riru. Inside A block, Mika is unconscious and Riru is monologuing. She says that she sees that as a symbol, she's weak. She has to become something of more substance to change things, and then she thanks Mika. Outside C block, Yukari is sensing all the bad vibes around here, and she's trying to make sense of the whirlwind of emotions that surrounds the place. She can sense that they all crave something, and she calls out to them to ask what they want. The voices start attacking her, and then she hears Arisa in the distance telling her to get down, and then Arisa yells at the voices, and Yukari can suddenly see again. Yukari is unimpressed to see Arisa, and this makes Arisa angry. Yukari realizes that she's being a jerk and she apologizes. She asks how Arisa knew how to come here, and Arisa says that Chisato sent her, to which Yukari says, of course, and thanks Chisato, even though Chisato isn't here. Arisa tries to make sense of everything that's happened, but Yukari tells her to snap out of it, and that they should go find Chisato. Arisa asks about Nana, and Yukari says it's alright, that the other kid saved her, and that she's fine for now. They can go and see her later, and then the two run back towards A block. On the roof of A block, Riru is standing on the edge, and Chisato is here. She is telling Riru that she understands why this is happening. Some strange force created not only by the pulse, but by the suffering that everyone here is affected by. And she says that it's that's making the parents stay out working until late, and making the teenagers run around out in town until past dark. And she says that diving isn't the solution. If Riru dives, it won't mean anything. People won't ask why she did it. They'll just get caught up in how her dying makes them feel, and that's just going to cause more neglect and more suffering. Riru says that she has to do it. It's the only thing that will give her and the others' existence meaning. Chisato says that her death is meaningless, and that she's talked to kids that have died. Riru takes notice of this, and she says she promised Mika, and Chisato asks her to please explain how she promised Mika that she would kill herself. Behind Chisato, Hanako-san appears, and she tells Riru that she will miss how warm life felt. Here on the other side it's cold, and it's even more scary than it was in the world of the living. Riru is understandably initially frightened, but she then thanks Chisato and says that she must be an angel and that she's come to take her away. Chisato tries to assure her that she's not an angel and that Rirou still has a choice in life. Rirou thanks her for caring and says that it's the first time she has felt like someone cares for her. And then she dies. As Arisa and Yukari make their way back to A block, Yukari asks Arisa if she's the one who kidnapped Nana earlier, and she insists that she didn't, but that she felt sorry that the kid had to go through that. Yukari notices that there's a weird vibe, and then Rirou flies through the air and crashes into the pavement. Yukari and Arisa just stand there, horrified, and Yukari asks herself how it got this far, and then she notices that Rirou is alive. She landed on someone. She landed on her father, crushing him to death instantly. Meanwhile, on the roof, Yayoi is telling Chisato that this is how things must be. Riru's father gave up his life for her, and that it is fitting since it was his actions that stole Riru's life and drove her to diving. Chisato asks Yayoi why she's following them around, and she says that she's just here to observe. Chisato accusingly asks if what she did to Yukari was just watching, and Yayoi says that she got bored of watching for just a moment. Chisato tells her that she won't let her hurt them, but Yayoi says that she can try, but that she won't succeed. Chisato tells Yayoi to prepare herself, and then they both go into Super Saiyan mode again and fight.